Good evening, everybody. Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. Speak louder, thank you. Okay. Good. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm astounded by the turnout here. At the same time, I'm also a little shocked by the number of experienced sailors I see here who are going to correct me all my mistakes. So you're in good company. If you're here because you haven't been downriver, there's lots of people here who have been, probably more even than I have. So we have a good evening.
Because of the weather.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Je vois qu'il y a beaucoup de monde, des francophones ici ce soir. Alors on va faire la présentation de façon bilingue. We're going to do the presentation bilingually. We're not going to repeat everything. We'll do some in French and some in English. If you think there's something you didn't quite understand, just put two fingers up. That means I'll repeat it in the other language. If that works out well, just fine. Anyway, on est flexible. La présentation va durer. Il y a une partie, moi je vais faire la première partie, Sylvie va faire la deuxième partie. Then if there are questions afterwards, we'll have lots of time to answer questions. I put all the charts up. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I've got all the paper charts, and they're all been updated by me every time I go down. I say, oh, that buoy's gone. Because that's what happens with GPS. They don't have as many buoys as they used to. They don't need to. But nevertheless, the charts are all here, and I want to refer them to you at times. Because I think it's germane to just see what it's all about, see the lines of it. The reason we're doing this, la raison pourquoi on fait cette présentation, c'est pas la première fois, nous avons fait ça, j'avais fait ça en 2007 ici au club. C'est parce que on trouve qu'il y a très peu de monde qui descend en bas du fleuve. Tout le monde va au milieu, c'est chaud, c'est beau. C'est plein de monde, il n'y a presque pas de place, mais presque personne va en bas du fleuve. They don't go downriver because what I hear is, well, there's tides and there's currents and there's fog and it's cold. All these things, and it's true. But it's not just that. There's a heck of a lot more than that. And while that's true, I mean, you go up to the Thousand Islands, you can be cold there, you can have fog there, it can be rainy, it can be crowded because everybody's up there in the summertime. So, and there's so much more positive of going down the St. Lawrence to the Saguenay. That's what I'm trying to, I guess, sell you on. I have nothing to gain from it except that there's no boats down there except boats from Quebec City and Chicoutimi, local people, in other words, Rimouski. So I just think we're missing a lot, so I want to persuade you to do that. First reason for going down the river, la première raison, c'est la beauté. On sait que c'est beau au milieu, mais c'est bien plus beau en bas du fleuve. Descendre in front of Quebec City, with the sun setting over the Chateau Frontenac, you'll see nothing more beautiful than that. And that's only the start. You get down past Ile d'Orléans, where you start seeing whales. As soon as you're below Ile d'Orléans, that's about 20 miles below Quebec City, you start seeing belugas. Not every time, but they are there as well. You get down to La Malbaie and Pointe-au-Pic. Manoir Richelieu is there, and just the mountains get beautiful in the Charlevoix. It's magnificent. And you haven't even got to the Saguenay yet, which is the best of all. That's the Saguenay, a view of the Saguenay there. This is a beautiful lighthouse installation on Cap au Saumon, which is between Cap-à-l'Aigle and Tadoussac. C'est de toute beauté. Et à ce point-là, ça c'est Cap au Saumon, il y a un troupeau de belugas résidents là. Tu vas les voir, c'est garanti, tu vas les voir, ils sont là tout le temps. Et c'est pas le seul point, il y a un autre point un peu plus haut, les belugas restent là, vivent là. C'est une vue à travers le fleuve, across the river. The luminosity. This is a shot of Cap-à-l'Aigle, which is La Malbaie, basically, the marina there. There's a reason why in the Charlevoix it's full of visual artists, painters, and that type of thing. There's something about the light down there. It's stunning. You can see in this thing, that's early in the morning, but a clear day, crystal clear. There's something that attracts painters there, and the Charlevoix is full of visual artists. So that alone, when you're down there, is worth seeing that. some of these pictures show that in a similar way. And then, of course, les baleines. Les belugas, on sait qu'ils sont en danger, mais on les voit partout. Il y en a, il y en a, il y en a. Et ils ont tendance à être résidents, de rester sur certains coins. Là, vous voyez un adulte avec un bébé, le bébé est gris. Et ça, c'est nos photos au prix de notre bateau. This picture, we took it, I took it, looking down from my stern. We were coming along one of these caps.
Sorry.
we came across a group of belugas, and at that time they said, the rule was if you see whales, stop. Just don't shut down your engine, because the whales hear you by the sound of your engine or your depth sounder. They can hear that, so they know you're there. But they don't want a propeller spinning, so we just stopped and we were just sitting there. The belugas came and looked at us. They're curious. This one here, you can see his eye. He came under the boat and he turned on his side. He was looking up at us, and I'm looking at him. And then they all just moved off, and then we moved off. So it's seeing the whales is astounding. Ça c'est plus devant Tadoussac où on a des grosses baleines. Jusqu'à des baleines de 90 pieds. On a vu, lors d'un de nos voyages là-bas, on avait vu une grosse tête carrée d'une immense baleine devant Tadoussac. Et en rentrant dans l'arbre, on est allé à la GREM, qui est la société de recherche des baleines à Tadoussac. On a demandé qu'est-ce qu'on avait vu. On dit on a un cachalot ici cette année. A cachalot, that's a sperm whale. You know, the one that inhaled Jonah in the Bible? You all read the Bible? But I mean, this big square, it's a massive whale. We saw that from our own boat. I left some flyers on the back table there. One of them is just from the companies at Tadoussac that do whale watching. They want $75 a day, or 75, pardon me, for 3 hours to go out in my boat. So the whale watching is astounding. This is just, I took this from the shore. This is right at Tadoussac. We were just walking around the headland there. A boat was coming in as a whale right by them. They're all over the place. This year when we were down in July, at one point I was going, where else have we gone? She was down the end of the dock because there was a whale playing around right by the dock. L'histoire. I've already referred to this a little bit, but more specifically, le Saguenay, c'est les origines de notre pays. Champlain avait, pendant 35 ans, il venait au Québec de France tous les printemps, puis il partait à la fin de saison, à l'automne. Et à chaque fois, il arrêtait à Tadoussac. Parce que c'était un endroit d'échange avec les Autochtones et les traders francophones qui étaient là. Et il pouvait avoir les dernières nouvelles du pays ce printemps-là en arrivant. So Tadoussac, this little harbor, it's just even today, it's this dinky little town. But it's got a history of over 400 years of significance of the source of our country, which you can't get anywhere else. You know, Canada and Quebec were founded right on this river, especially from Montreal, Quebec, Tadoussac, and below. This is Tadoussac, a view coming in. By the way, if you see a lot of gulls like that, they're on the water feeding, it's because there's whales there feeding. And I guess they kill some of the krill and they don't get it all in. They have on the surface, so the gulls are going crazy. But that's the Hotel Tadoussac and the red roof in the background there. Okay, so let me get into just the specifics of going downriver. I put all the charts up here so I can refer them a little bit. De Montréal à Trois-Rivières, des choses assez techniques, rien de spécial. On a les deux écluses à passer, Sainte-Catherine et Saint-Lambert, pour rentrer dans le port de Montréal. Notre habitude, c'est qu'on part le début de l'après-midi, et puis on donne qu'est-ce que ça prend pour passer les deux écluses. On ne sait jamais le délai qu'on va avoir. So we look to leave early afternoon, and whatever it takes us to get through the two locks. We seem to be lucky. You know, we tend to get through fast, but I've heard horror stories of people stuck there for 6-8 hours. And then what we do is we get through, and then we anchor. We just anchor just in front of the Longueuil, just above the marina, the Port de Plaisance de Longueuil. You'll see lots of boats on moorings there, so it's quite a comfortable anchorage, you know, on the south shore of the river. And then at dawn the next morning, we're off. This is the view from Lac Saint-Louis, you know, Montreal from here, and that's on the other side. That's below from the port of Montreal. So, from Montreal to Trois-Rivières, you've got 37 nautical miles to Sorel and another 32 to get from Sorel to Trois-Rivières. So that's a pretty big day. You've got 70 nautical miles to do. A sailboat like mine, I'm doing 6 knots, you know, if I don't have any waves or any wind or anything like that. So, you know, covering that, that's a big long day. Except that you've got the current going with you. So leaving the port of Montreal, you've got, gosh, here, it's even marked 2 to 3 knots leaving the port heading down. So we stick to the main channel, the shipping channel, because you're going so fast. You want the maximum of current to carry you down. Oh yeah, c'est un voilier en vitesse de 6 nœuds avec le courant favorable pour atteindre Trois-Rivières en 8 ou 9 heures. Et c'est non, il n'y a pas de problème. Vous êtes sûrement d'accord avec moi. On parle de météo au lac Saint-Pierre. Le lac Saint-Pierre, c'est un peu comme le lac Saint-Louis, sauf qu'encore plus large. S'il y a des gros vents, là, ça peut être rough. It can be rough. It's usually you're more concerned coming back up because you're going against the current. But even going down, if the wind is coming up and the current's going down, you're going to get some rough chop there. So it's the only thing to watch there is Lac Saint-Pierre. You're going to see lots of shipping in the river, lots of big ships, and they're going fast. So that's something that I do want to make a point about. You all know, of course, we've got sailboats or powerboats, whatever, the plaisanciers. We have no rights against these guys. They have all the rights of passage, and you've got to stay out of their way, and they're coming fast. Especially look behind you, because if you're going downriver, you know, we may be doing 6-8 knots, but they're doing 15 plus the current, so they catch up to you fast. We avoid going downriver, being on the river at night. We've done it before, and I was very uncomfortable with it because the ships are coming down. There's so many lights on the shore, it was hard to see them. Nowadays with AIS and you know, the plotters you can have to tell you where the ships that are coming, it's better, but still, there's a heck of a lot of shipping between Montreal and Quebec City. A heck of a lot more than we see on Lac Saint-Louis. Most of them stop in Montreal. I mean, I noticed this trip down, there's a new container port at Bécancour. You know, they built a dock there to bring in ships with bauxite for the aluminum smelter. And now they got container ships going in there. Montreal's got 4 or 5 big container ports, you know, huge ships coming through. So the heck of a lot of traffic. That's the Pont La Violette in Trois-Rivières. Consigne de sécurité. Je dis toujours suivre le chanel maritime. Oui et non. Le problème, c'est que le chanel entre Montréal et Québec est assez étroit. Ça, c'est Lac Saint-Pierre, ici devant Trois-Rivières. Tout le reste, c'est assez étroit. Et parfois, il n'y a pas d'espace à côté. Dans les rapides de Richelieu, par exemple, qui sont près de Pont-Neuf, ici, c'est très étroit. Et juste à côté, il y a des rochers. So you can't, there's places you can't go out. So always know where you are and watch your chart. So if you're meeting a ship, if there's room, I go out of the channel. There's no question about it, especially if there's 2 ships meeting and I'm there too. But you've got to be careful. There are times there's no room outside the channel. So literally, before I'm coming to the rapid de Richelieu, I'll be looking around, seeing who's coming, and you know, get out of their way. I mentioned here, keep a sharp lookout ahead and astern. Now with AIS, if you've got an updated VHF radio, or even Marine Traffic is one of the apps. There's another one called Boat Beacon. If you've got a phone, a smartphone with the internet a cellular connection, you can go and you can see who's coming down the river, who's coming up and coming down. So that's a marvelous thing. I'm sure you're familiar. AIS is automatic identification system. All commercial ships have to have it, and you can have it too on your sailboat. Sometimes I'm sitting at home, I'm looking at who's going by in Lac Saint-Louis. You know, because you see a little symbol, you click on it, it gives you the name of the ship. Click on it again, and it gives you full detail of the ship. You know, what kind of ship it is, how big it is, what its draft is, how fast he's going, what direction he's going. And sometimes they just say sailing vessel. You know, kind of no further knowledge. You know, so it's some high-tech character. Éviter de voyager la nuit, ça c'est ma préférence. But, j'ajouterai l'histoire, il y a 6, 7, 8 ans, le voilier le Mont-Dessy, qui était frappé par un cargo, un bateau conteneur, juste à l'hauteur de Donnacona, à peu près 10-15 000 en haut du Québec. Et lui, il avait une équipe pas expérimentée. Seul qui était au bar avait tombé endormi, puis il avait lâché la barre, puis le bateau tournait en rond. Et c'était le matin, c'était en juin, je pense, à 6 heures du matin. Le monde à terre avait entendu les 5 coups du cargo qui indiquent « je ne sais pas qu'est-ce que tu fais ». Anyway, il était frappé. Et il y avait 5 personnes à bord, 3 ont perdu la vie. So that's why I avoid traveling at night. It's just harder. And the other thing I prefer to do is get nautique. I use this one, which is free, published by La Scale Nautique. It comes out every year. It's the Guide de Tourisme Nautique. It's, especially for the St. Lawrence River, it's just got all the details of the marinas and with their cell phones and the HF numbers and that. So if you need to know, okay, where can I next get gasoline or diesel, it's all in here. Also very good, he repeats all the detail that I'm talking about here about, if there's certain things like I'm coming to a Trois-Rivières, you want to leave before a certain time to catch the tide. It's all in here as well. So I recommend this. They're at the club here normally in the springtime. I took this one because I'm always impressed by the bow wave, thinking I might be there. This is, actually, I mentioned the Rapid de Distributeur. This is a beacon on one side of the Rapid de Distributeur, and that's right at the end of the channel. You can see the rocks. So there are places where there's very little water outside the channel. This is around Donnacona, actually. This is a corner here. You can see 2 green buoys. You're actually turning like that. Here's 2 ships passing right in that area. I've always found that if you get the narrowest part of the river, you're going to for sure have traffic. Too much traffic there. You'll recognize, vous allez connaître des bateaux avec la flèche jaune, ça c'est les bateaux dégagnés. C'est une compagnie de Québec, mais c'est du monde de l'île aux Coudres, généralement. Ils ont toute une flottille des bateaux cargo et des pétrolières aussi. OK, c'est Trois-Rivières du Québec, 34 000 Trois-Rivières à Port-Neuf et un autre 34 Port-Neuf au Québec. Ça, c'est 68 000 nautiques. Et deuxième produit, depuis l'effet de la marée à partir de Trois-Rivières. So you've got the tide starting at Trois-Rivières. So now everything changes. Now, instead of just having the river current taking you down, which is predictable and forecastable, you've got the tides. And they go both ways. They go up and they go down, and they go up and they go down. But the beautiful thing is,
where do you stay in Trois-Rivières?
At the marina,
At the marina, okay.
Or we anchor. Where's the Okay, yeah. Right in here, going to the river, St. Maurice, just the last mile there, it's full of it, lots of boats anchored there. But the Marina Trois-Rivières is right here, just on the third, the Trois-Rivières is 2 islands in the middle of the St. Maurice, that's the Trois-Rivières. But there's a very good marina there, they have diesel and gasoline, of course. But you can anchor in here, very nice anchorage and comfortable. And well, no. They say technically the tides reach Trois-Rivières, but only a scientist could measure it. I've never seen it that far. Coming up from Quebec City, when we leave with the tide to bring us up, we don't get as far as Trois-Rivières with the lift. We lose it at Tadoussac, which is around in this area, about 8 miles below Trois-Rivières. But yeah, there's good anchorage there. I'll talk a little bit actually at the end about anchorages coming back up the river. Going down the river, we want to. The point is to get down there and get down there. Charlevoix. Encore des cargos. Bateau de croisière. Oh, and that's that's the Dolphin, which belongs to, I think, the Simard family in Sorel. Beautiful ship. It was here once a few years ago. Magnificent yacht. Okay. So, de Trois-Rivières à Québec, à 6 nœuds, un voilier qui doit partir de Trois-Rivières 8 heures avant l'avancement de Québec. So, a sailboat like mine that normally cruises at 6 knots, you leave Trois-Rivières 8 hours before the low tide of Quebec City. So it's a simple rule. Obviously, if you're a power boat, you can do 10 or whatever you expect to do. You can calculate that better. You can leave later, obviously. What happens is that you end up, you're doing the 68 nautical miles, you'll cover in 8.5 hours with a boat speed of your 6 knots plus an average current of 2 knots. Now that's an average, because when you first start, you don't have that. But as you get going with the tide, picks you up and starts taking you down, you go faster and faster and faster. This July, when Sylvia and I went under the Quebec Bridge, the GPS said we were doing 12 knots. Now that's right there. It's a narrow sport. It's just you roar through. But that's fun, you know, because you're in full control. You're still moving through the water at 6 knots. You have full control of your rudder. You don't feel any balance, but the whole place is moving at another 6 knots. C'est formidable. Ça, c'est juste pour voir le fait qu'il y a du beauté là-bas. Clapotis, or tidal rips. They're on the charts. We don't see them above Quebec City, but below Quebec City you'll see little, very small areas that on an ebb tide you'll get these waves that form. I've run into them and I still don't understand. Okay, I understand ebb tide, the tide is going out. But, and if there's a wind coming up, of course, that makes its own waves. But all I can tell you is a fairly small area. The times I've hit it before I understood them, I literally got up and hung onto the mast and I looked left and I looked right. And I could see over there is calm and over there is calm. Right here is not. So we turned and, you know, within 50 feet got out of it. But there are these things, they're on the charts, just be aware of them. The charts say this happens seulement sur une marée au jusant. And like this part of the chart here, this is Cap aux Oies, which is just below Île aux Coudes. And there are some close in, and there are some further out as well. So if you're going down with the marée au jusant, you got to watch for that. Sorry.
How much of the way did you sail then?
Not that much, I'll admit. Basically, doing as we've got a small boat, we're only doing 6 knots. I have a 1-cylinder diesel. So we're concerned about getting there with the tide, especially once you're below Trois-Rivières. Now, there's many places to stop, but our preference is to get to Quebec City and then get down below. That's where we want to spend our time. We usually get some sailing once we're down below Cap-Alais, because the river's so wide there. Usually the Saguenay, because the wind comes down the Saguenay from the northwest, you motor up and you sail down. And you can have the most glorious sails with your spinnaker up coming down the Saguenay. And coming back up to Quebec City, if you're lucky enough to catch a northeast wind, even a very strong one, that's going with the tide, put a sail up and you blow up the river too. But, you know, I'll be frank, this not as much sailing as you'd like to have, just because of the distances. OK. Je parle de quelques publications essentielles, donc les livres des marées, les tables des marées. Tu vois, celui-là, c'est daté 2007, c'est la dernière fois que j'ai acheté le livre au complet. Mais parce qu'aujourd'hui, on peut les avoir, on peut avoir les pages pour les ports qu'on veut sur le site web du Transport Canada. Gratuitement, on imprime ça ou on copie ça. Mais je garde toujours le livre avec moi parce qu'il y a des choses, des explications très intéressantes. Si vous êtes une personne technique, intéressant de voir comment ils calculent le medium low or the medium low water or the maximum low water or the maximum high water. I mean, these scientific people, they're really brilliant. So, you know, sometimes it's fun to read that when you're having trouble sleeping, but other things, it's just ils ont par exemple, des ports secondaires qui sont pas leur propre page, comme Québec, Pointe-au-Père, Québec, Pointe-au-Père, Saint-François, Saint-Jean-Port-Joli. Ils ont des places secondaires comme Saint-Laurent d'Île-d'Orléans. Ils vont vous dire, OK, c'est 30 minutes avant Québec. So je peux le calculer exactement pour ce point-là. So this, you know, I keep this book around. But you must have the tide charts. You know, when you go downriver, the tides are your friends. You just have to follow them. They're so predictable. I mean, the scientists can calculate them for 3,052 if they wanted to, because they are so predictable. It's the moon. It's based on the moon. So make sure you've got those in hand. So this is the tide chart from that book, 2007. You can see when I was using it, I tend to just, you know, because the page is so busy, I just loop around it. When I'm on the next day, I cross it out and go on to the next. And let me just point out a few things about the tide charts that are important. My next slide. Just put that in. Yeah. First of all, for many years, I always found that I was about an hour off in my calculation. Finally, I realized this little thing up, let's see, EST. No, that's Eastern Standard Time. It's the winter time. I'm there in the summer. Jeez. So you got to these numbers, you got to add an hour if you're there in the summer. You know, it's done, but that's the way it is. So I made that mistake for a few years. The other thing is the marnage, that is the height of the tide, changes. It's obviously its maximum at full moon and at the new moon. So twice a month you get higher tides than normal. And they can be very significant. We're here at Quebec, here where the tides are, if you just run down quickly, you see the low tide, the high tide. This is in feet, low tide, high tide, 16 feet, 13 feet. The one tide every day is bigger than the other, than the next high tide. So you see 16 to 13, 16 to 14, and 17. Yeah. So this is probably the full moon or the new moon. You'll get this extra high tide. So the tide range from there is 2 to 17 feet. So you're getting a difference between the tides of 15 feet. That's a lot of water. And then if you run down to a more normal tide, you've got, say, 2 to 13 or 2 to 12. So the difference is only 10 feet. So that's significant. You want to know that. So that's the marnage or the tidal range. Particularly, that means there's that much more water flowing with you at that tide. And when you're coming back upriver, that's, if you can catch the highest tides, it'll bring you much closer to Trois-Rivières, get you home faster. So, the marnage, tidal range. Another shot here, just in my own notes, you can see I put the secondary ports that I was interested in. One of the things I did, actually this year, is I went online and I just copied the ports I wanted from Environment Canada. And then I realized I get down there, I needed Pointe-au-Père. I'm not going to Pointe-au-Père, but for another book I'm consulting, the current book I'll show you in a minute, it's based, a good part of downriver is based on Pointe-au-Père, which is just below Rimouski. I didn't have Pointe-au-Père, so you need to consider all these things. Ça c'est un concept de base. Un vent fort contre le marais va faire des vagues. Square waves. Tu ne veux pas avoir ça. Et ça c'est notre point. En bas du Québec, il faut avoir du temps en main. Il ne faut pas être forcé de dire il faut qu'on parle aujourd'hui pour je ne sais pas quoi. Parce qu'il peut y avoir le brouillard. Tu lèves le matin, c'est plein de brouillard, tu ne parles pas. Si tu as un vent contre le marais, si tu montes puis le vent descend, si le vent est fort, tu ne parles pas. Ça c'est tellement difficile. So those are some of the basic rules, if I can put it that way. Another big container ship. This is an example of the tidal range I was talking about, the Mountain Ash. This is the beach at Tadoussac. This little boat, when we arrived there, he's like they have in Holland. He's got two little side keels. He's got his main keel and two little side keels. So we were there for several days. This guy's sitting up on the beach, nothing going on, you know. And all of a sudden, that night we had the highest range of tides. He was gone the next morning. So he decided just to park there for a month, or maybe 2 weeks, I guess, between the tide ranges. But I thought that was pretty good description of what I'm talking about. This is the other book that's actually even more important, the Atlas des courants. Ça, c'est primordial. Et j'ai remercié Dix, All right. Back there, who taught me about this a good 20 years ago. And what this is, I'm going to show you some pages inside, yeah. This is published by Transport Canada, and it gives the region from Trois-Rivières down to Tadoussac, only that part. And as you can see, it's just full of these pages. And what it gives you in 12 pages, every section of the river, this is Ilocud, they will show you hour by hour, over 12 hours, exactly what the currents will do. And not just in the middle of the river, all over the place. So you can see here at Ilocud, it's, the main channel is here. The color codes will tell you the speed of the, I think red there is, orange is 4 to 5 knots, red is 5 to 6 knots. I can't see the color of the other one. But that's where you really know you've got a heck of a lot of water coming. Clearly you don't go against that, but you go with it, and then you're flying. So I'm showing you two of them. You see here the currents going downriver. Here, c'est en montant. C'est pas aussi fort en montant à cause du volume de la rivière qui descend, mais c'est quand même très fort. Regarde, orange, c'est 4 à 5 nœuds en montant. So, les courants causés par les marées, la vie est notre ami là-bas, parce qu'on va toujours avec. Si on monte au Mille-Îles, on monte tranquillement contre le courant, puis on descend rapidement à la fin. Ici, à partir de Trois-Rivières, on descend avec le courant, on remonte avec le courant. Pas de mieux. That's fantastic downriver. You move so much faster. So this current book, I use it especially if I want to, if I've got an extra long distance I want to do. I'll get it out the night before, cocktail hour, just when you relax, you look through it. You say, okay, I'm going to leave 2 hours before, early. I'm going to leave 2 hours before the tide changes, so I'm going to be going against the tide. And you'll see, this is not a good picture there, but in certain areas you find, well, same here, if I was on this shore, I would stick really close to the shore. Maybe use my depth sounder, follow the 25-foot depth line just along the shore. And so you minimize the current going against you, because as you get closer to the shore, you've got a back current. And I'll go maybe 2 hours early. And I'm not going very fast, maybe 4 knots, but after 2 hours, I've gained 8 miles, 8 nautical miles. C'est beaucoup, ça. So, si j'ai 60 ou 70 000 à faire, avoir gagné 8 nœuds, 1000 nautiques au début de la voyage, c'est important. So this is what this thing really tells you. It tells you where to go to avoid the worst of the current. Going to bays, this and that, so I have to make sure there's enough water in the bays. But there's lots of ways you can do that. So this is a wonderful book, and I've discovered the same current book on the west coast in the Straits of Georgia. They have it there. But I was amazed looking at it for the whole Straits of Georgia around Vancouver Island. All the arrows are tiny, tiny little things. Why bother having it? But here, they're really serious, and that's I think what scares people. But if you're going with it, it's your friend. So, we arrived at Quebec. We're now into tidal waters, and we're saying, all right, what's the next thing here now? Because we still got about 150 miles to, 110 nautical miles to get to Tadoussac. It used to be, I would always just go to the Quebec City, the Yacht Club de Quebec, or what do they call it now? Bassin Louis, c'est le port de la Ville de Quebec, anyway, they keep changing the name, which is right in the old town. And then you had 52 mille nautiques, you got to Ilocud. There's a very nice marina there. Trouble is the marina's closed now because they built the marina back in the 80s, I think with federal money, but they didn't supply the money to keep it dredged out. So it's just filled in. So it's just, I noticed last time I looked at my binoculars, even the building's gone. So just there's nothing there. So instead, so basically the next place then is Capellet, which is another 20 nautical miles. So 72 nautical miles from my boat doing 6 knots plus the current a hell of a distance to do, because you also got, you only got one tide to do it. You can say, well, it's a 12-hour day, but you don't want to be going against the tide because you'll be almost stopped. So, what we started doing the last few years is I moved down from Quebec City, 10 miles down the river on l'île d'Orléans at Saint-Laurent. Il y a un très beau marinet qui s'appelle le Club nautique de l'île Bacchus, which is impressionnant, ce nom-là. But apparently that's what Jacques Cartier, I think, called l'île d'Orléans, because he found grapes growing there or something. Must have been some global warming going on then too. Very nice marina. So if you leave from there, then you're already done 10 miles. And c'est sûr qu'en partir de notre Bacchus, nous autres on part typiquement 2 heures avant que le marée change. So on batte le courant, on reste collé à l'île pour gagner les 8 ou 10 000 qu'on peut faire. Avec ça, même si on a 62 000 nautiques pour arriver à Cap-Alègue, on arrive là, cette fois-ci, on était peut-être à 2 000 avant le marina, quand le marée a changé, est en face. So, on est assez fiers de ça. Ah, Dick, you recognize this? It's used to call it the sucker. This is, you'll see this regularly. It's always dredging the channel right beside the other. Yeah, here, in this part of so you're leaving Quebec City, Saint-Laurent is here. It's 10 miles from Quebec City. And then just down around here, which is this area here, in fact, this narrow channel, it fills in all the time. So they're dredging constantly, and that dredge is there all the time. If you go by it at night, you're coming out and you see these incredible lights, and he doesn't seem to be moving. What the hell is that? You get closer and closer to the bloody dredge. But when I caught him that time, it was during the day, and he was moving because I guess he was full. He came around here and just dumped his stuff in this area. He's dumping around here, like we have in Lac-Saint-Louis. Same thing. Except they're still working there all the time. I guess if we didn't, the channel would close. There's an idea of the currents you can have down there, which we're used to even upriver. Okay, ça c'est le Cap-Alègue, il s'appelle le port de refuge de Cap-Alègue, qui était aussi bâti dans les années 80. Un excellent havre, très accueillant. So I want to talk a little bit about Cap-Alègue. The beautiful thing about Cap-Alègue is you're right smack in the middle of the Charlevoix. That's a place you want to spend a couple of days. There's not much, you walk up the hill from there, there's not much around, some residential areas, there's a pensionnaire, is that which is closed, it's bankrupt, we just found this summer, we were disappointed. But you can rent a car from there and drive around the heart of the Charlevoix for a day or two, it's wonderful. You're just, La Balbée is just a few miles below.
Saint-Paul?
Saint-Paul, yeah, it's just a few miles above, and in between you have Saint-Irénée and all these little villages that are just full of artists and paint and sculptures, just formidable. Just une place qui vaut la peine à visiter. So Cap-Alègue, c'est un excellent endroit pour passer une couple de journées et faire la visite dans la région. Oh, yeah, c'est vrai. Il y a un nouveau restaurant qui vient d'ouvrir au Marina. C'est un bistrot, là, mais pour une petite marina, c'était très impressionnant. J'espère que ça va durer. Bon, enfin, de Cap-Alègue à Tadoussac, c'est 39 000. Ça, c'est pas si loin, 39 000 nautiques. Là, c'est sûr, on voit les belugas. Je vais parler des photos. On les voit à Cap-Alègue, il y a Cap-Alègue tête aux chiens. Il y a 2 familles, 2 troupeaux à l'Est-Ganda. C'est garanti, à chaque fois, ça fait plusieurs fois qu'on les voit, ils sont toujours là. So, belugas at those 2 capes, they're resident paws, they're always there. Wonderful to see. OK. Planification particulière requise à l'entrée du Saguenay. Le problème, c'est qu'au Saguenay, vous arrivez avec le marée descendant, mais la maladie descente de Saguenay aussi. Et Tadoussac est là. Vous avez des battures des alouettes qui sèchent à marée basse. Il faut les contourner. Et d'ici à là, c'est 5 minutes nautiques. So, en théorie, la planification devrait être... Arriver ici, quand les courants sont moins forts, commencent à tourner un peu, et vous êtes capable de rentrer sans des difficultés. Mais quand on est arrivé là, c'était plus comme ça. Et, mais tout de suite ici, on a commencé à voir les bateaux de touristes pour voir les baleines. So we stopped moving. We started following them, see the whales. It was early enough in the day. It was early afternoon, I think. So, you know, if you're out here, because this is where the grosses baleines, they're all around here. Sometimes they move down here a little bit, but this is the area you see them in. So we were happy to go a couple of hours, take our time going up, and we had whales all the way right into the mouth, right into this area. There were big whales visible there. So, in a way, yeah, you should plan your arrival if you want to be the most efficient, but you don't have to either if time's on your side. And it's all well marked. There are two buoys here, two large seaway buoys in these positions here. And then all the way in here, the channel there is buoyed as well. And out here around this position, you can see the chart, you see it, but is the grosse phare de la haute fond planks. It's a huge thing about, c'est pas l'auteur, Roger, 30-40 pieds, c'est
Yeah,
immense.
it's pretty huge. It's
Yeah,
huge.
it comes up like this and it goes, well, just helicopters can just sit on the top of it. So you can, you know, that's the symbol. I should have a picture of that, I forgot. So it's, you know, it's well marked getting in there. La planification qui est importante, c'est juste le fait que vous pouvez peut-être en rentrant être face aux marées descendant la Saguenay.
Actually, what's the current speed coming down the Saguenay?
It's not as bad as here. You can see by the color. See that blue, that's pretty high. That blue is 2 or 3 knots. So, you know, you're going in, I'm making 3 knots going against it. It's not very fast, but there's whales to watch, so you're not in a hurry. But if you plan it, if I had, I think this is 3 hours later. 1 to 2 hours after the water. Afternoon, 2, 3, 3 to 2. Actually, just 1 hour later. Hang on. Oh, I got more here than I thought. Sorry, I'm confusing myself.
One is before, one is after.
Oh, I forgot how many I had here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's, you can see the propagation of the currents, you know, as they're starting to turn and go back up. So this is the rain in Tadoussac. And on va parler du brouillard. We'll talk about fog. You know, we were down there for 3 weeks in July. We had no fog, 0. We've been down there before, and certainly we've run into fog. There's been mornings you get up and the fog looks like this, and you say, well, I guess we're not going anywhere today. Unless sometimes that's really heavy when it's right in by the shore. Sometimes you see it out. You can't see the gros phare or the haute place, and that's 5 nautical miles out. It's halfway across the river. So you might say, well, we'll wait for a while, and often it clears by 9 o'clock in the morning or something. In any case, you're going with the tide, so you've got a time you want to leave, and if you can't leave at that time, the fog's still there, then you don't leave. But my view of handling the fog, and let me say this, I don't have radar in my boat. I've always had GPS. My father didn't have GPS, but he went down there. And basically I rely on the GPS. If we're out there and we get caught in the fog, the things I worry about is number 1, the shipping. If we're anywhere like above Quebec City in the river, then you've got to get the hell out of the way and make sure there's no shipping coming down on you. So that's dangerous. So always know where you are. Fog is forecastable, so I hesitate to say that's perfectly forecastable. It probably isn't. But you know, they usually will tell you there's a high chance of fog tomorrow, so pay attention to the weather forecast. know where you are so that if you suddenly get caught in a bank of fog, because that's going to happen. And that's the scary thing. You're going along and all of a sudden you say, the hell is that? There's this cloud on the water and you suddenly sail into it and you can barely see the bow of your boat. So that's why you want to know where you are all the time. But with the GPS, that's not hard. Get out of the commercial shipping channel if you're in it. Fortunately, once you're down around Tadoussac, there's no channel anymore. It's almost the whole river, and they tend to be further offshore, so that's not an issue. And then just follow your waypoints to a safe harbor. Several years ago, we were leaving Tadoussac, and I'd been up on shore and looked out. I could see the south shore. I could see the Gros Phare. No problem. The forecast was good, so we took off. And we're just running out, the harbor running out to the Gros Phare. And suddenly, we ran into a localized fog bank. Well, we had our GPS. So I said, well, fine. I knew where we were at that point. We were heading for one of those two buoys around the Batsour des Alouettes. We made for the first one. We didn't even see the buoy, but I could tell when we were by it. We made for the second one. As halfway there, we passed two yachts coming down. Fortunately, we didn't run into each other. At least I knew. And I could see they had radar, so I thought, okay, they're good, I'm good. And the next thing you know, the next thing we could see, suddenly I could see above the clouds, I could see the top of the mountains on the North Shore in the Charlevoix. So I thought, roughly know where I am. And the next thing you know, we came out of it. So, fog can be managed. I don't like it, and if I think there's fog, I don't go. And that's why I said earlier, always have some extra time on hand for days when you shouldn't go, either because of fog or just bad weather or wind against tide. This is from Tadoussac looking up the Saguenay. If you turn up the Saguenay the next day, that's what you're going to start seeing. And it's just magnificent. So on the Saguenay, you're talking, it's about 50-55 nautical miles up to Chicoutimi. And that's the head of navigation. It's the last two charts at the end there. I've got the Saguenay River. It's magnificent. The hills, the mountains, les montagnes sur les bords sont aussi hauts que la profondeur. 1000 pieds de haut, 1000 pieds de profondeur. Et ça, pas besoin d'avoir peur de frapper un roche, il n'y a rien d'autre. C'est pas l'accent Louis. Même, j'avais remarqué en mettant mes cartes marines pour le Saguenay, ils sont des vieilles chartes quand même, ils sont en fathoms. Ce n'est pas des mètres ou des pieds, c'est fathoms qui est 6 pieds. Et ça, vous voyez typiquement 150 fathoms, 900 000 pieds de profondeur. Alors, pour entrer dans le Saguenay, il y a des endroits à le faire, mais il n'y en a pas beaucoup. Et les endroits sont très limités. S'il y a déjà 2 bateaux là, probablement tu ne peux pas. Plus, tu as les courants qui montent puis descendent, les marèges de réseau qui montent puis descendent. So it makes anchoring that much more difficult. I don't know about you, but if I'm anchored and I'm in tidal waters, I'm going to make sure to get up when the tide changes to make sure my anchor sets again. In fact, I'll maybe take it up and reset it myself, rather than trusting that it'll twist around and reset itself. So, from Tadoussac, the places we do go to, Anse Saint-Jean, there's a lovely marina there in a bay on the south shore of the Saguenay, 22 nautical miles, an easy run that next day. It's a little village that's there, not much, but a very nice marina. I think I have a picture actually. Yeah, that's it, Anse Saint-Jean. So we're heading up that way. Charming little place, not much going on, but still lovely. Oh, and you can swim there sometimes. This is rare. That's still swimming in the harbor at Anse Saint-Jean. Not this year. That was a few years ago. But you can sometimes in the shallower bays get swimmable water. Next place up is Bay Eternité, and this is one side of the bay is Cap Trinité, and you see the statue of the Virgin Mary up there. There's a big long story about that you can learn when you're down there. I like to show this picture. I was there, I think it was in 2007, I was there with André Benoit, and we were on a mooring buoy there. Just for part of the afternoon, we were tied up together. But this line here We had a bottle of champagne in a bag 30 feet down. It came up perfectly chilled. So il y a des avantages à l'eau froide. Ça, c'est nouveau, ça. Et on a fait des décors. Ça, c'est Ville-l'Abbé, the old Paul Alfred. Oui. C'est pas complètement, mais c'est la honte d'une partie du Saguenay. Et tu peux la contourner pour aller à Chicoutimi. Mais ils ont fait une nouvelle porte pour les gros carreaux. Et la chose qui est plus drôle, ça c'est une marina pour les plaisanciers. So we were anchored in there, we came right around. We didn't see that big boat here, but there's also, this is the marina, the Club de Voile l'Abeille. But the trouble is it's 3 or 4 miles around the town, so it's not much fun to go over there when you want to be here. But now we can go right there. Charming little place. You can see a big cargo ship coming in here too. Just down the way is the Alcan's docks at Port Alfred. They're bringing in bauxite and taking out aluminum ingots. So that's what it's there for. Perfect deep navigation. If ever you see, as I saw many, many years ago, a big ship like that going through the mist of the Saguenay, it's just magnificent. Oh yeah. Grande attention ici. Là, c'est ça. C'est plage? Oui. Quand on était là en juillet, le monde de la ville était sur la plage puis se baignait. Ça c'est à 50 000 au nord du Tadoussac, au nord de la plage. On peut voir l'eau chaude. Mais le plage, il y avait du monde. C'était très impressionnant.
Did you swim, Pat?
No.
Water temperature?
No, we found a nice bar. We were in the bar.
What was the water temperature then?
This summer, it's funny, when we were in the St. Lawrence approaching Tadoussac, I have a picture here. I didn't put it because I didn't want to depress people, but it showed it showed 49 point something degrees Fahrenheit, the water temperature. That's in the St. Lawrence.
Patrick, is there just 2 docks there for Flaherty?
There's three double docks. There, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Not a lot of room, but there's not that many boats. So most of the local people are over here. We had no trouble when we were there. We were 2 boats, and we were the only people there. So. And the speed they have fuel there and pump out. So everything you want. Very friendly. That's the thing down there. There's nobody there. Tadoussac, des fois, ça peut être
Full house.
Même si c'est Full House, ils vont mettre le monde à l'école. J'ai jamais vu Full House. J'ai plus d'expérience là. Mais Cap-Alais, il y a toujours de la place. Sûrement la veille, il y a toujours de la place. C'est pas comme ici, c'est pas comme au Midi.
Is this a clubhouse, the roof that we see by the harbor there, Pat?
That's this fancy new, it's not a window, it's not a clubhouse. This is the reception hall for the
tourists.
Yeah. It's a great big hall. There's washrooms and showers for the plaisanciers. You go and use them. But it's just, it's a reception area. I guess that goes, if you build a big cruise ship dock, you've got to build these other infrastructure.
Okay.
And there's more, in this building here, they have several restaurants and bars, all very haut de gamme, but fun places. And that's for the tourists, You go on a cruise ship, you eat all the time, then you get off the boat and you eat some more. No problem. But it's kind of neat. You're there in your own boat, my own little 27-foot boat. Not, I may be paying $50 to dock there. These guys are paying thousands on that cruise ship. And the food's better on my boat. Juste un mot pour Tadoussac vers la Golfe. L'Atlas des marées, des courants, ça va jusqu'à Tadoussac, pas en bas. La raison, c'est que le fleuve est tellement large en bas de Tadoussac qu'il n'y a plus l'effet, il n'y a plus des courants causés par les marées, les gros courants, comme vous avez en haut du Tadoussac. The reason is the rivers get so wide. At Tadoussac, it's 10 miles wide. At Sept-Îles, it's 60 miles wide. It's huge. So above Tadoussac, you get the funnel effect of the tides coming up. They roar up, and they go right up to Trois-Rivières for crying out loud, and then roar down. But below that, it's more like being in Nova Scotia. So the tides come up, the tides go down. There are some currents in local areas, but they're not the massive ones you have above Tadoussac. You're also 180 miles from Sept-Îles. That's a long way down. I picked Sept-Îles because if you go across, you're still, before you get around the corner to Gaspé on the south shore. So that's why I'm really not talking much about down there. There's another reason too. I never go below Tadoussac. That's where, if you look at Environment Canada, their weather forecast, there's a forecast Tadoussac and up above, and they have all the sections of the river. And then there's one from Tadoussac down to the Gulf of St. Lawrence. And you know, I mean, it's not the same. You're in the ocean then. And you're in the cold Gulf of St. Lawrence. C'est méchant. Pour les gens comme Roger de Rimouski, c'est normal. Mais pour les pêcheurs de Gaspésie, c'est normal. Mais pour les plaisanciers. Par contre, les courants sont moins forts, mais le nageur favorise la voile. We were talking about sailing before. You can much more easily sail down there. You can tack and back across the river even with the tides. The other thing is, on parle du nordais, is what they call the wind down there. That's the northeast wind. We know the east wind here brings bad weather. Well, in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, you know, a northeast wind comes from the North Atlantic, the Arctic, and it's strong and it's mean. You know, we're on a landmass, the North American landmass. The good weather, the typical weather comes across the landmass from west to east. So our good weather here is always southwest, northwesterly winds. Get an easterly wind, it almost always means rain. Kind of same down there. So I don't think I don't talk anymore about below Tadoussac. Just before I leave the Saguenay though, I mentioned that Sylvia and I, we like to get down to Quebec City, and in Quebec City we like to get down to Cap-à-Laigue, and then we start relaxing, we start visiting, go to Tadoussac, start relaxing, go up the Saguenay. This year we were gone 3 weeks, we spent 5 or 6 days on the Saguenay. You know, it's just so beautiful up there. The weather's mild, you're away from St. Lawrence. You're into the more, westerly winds. And because you're not on the river, the St. Lawrence River, where the water is much colder, it's cool up the Saguenay too, but not as cool. It starts getting warmer. That it's a place really to go and relax and just appreciate the beauty. Okay, I'm getting close to the end of my section here. Just heading back upriver, just a couple of points about that. One is that, je vais parler du marnage. Surtout de Québec, la ville de Québec, pour remonter à Trois-Rivières. Si je peux planifier mon voyage pour partir du Québec avec le plus gros marnage, the highest tides, because they'll bring you the closest to Trois-Rivières as fast as you can. This year we didn't manage it as well, and you're going up and I'm doing 6 knots. I don't know, my engine's doing 6 knots, but the GPS says I'm doing 9 knots, and then 8.5, and then 8, and then 7.5, and then 7. And then finally it comes to 6 knots, and then it turns against you and you start losing from there. Well, we got up to around Gronzin, no, Deschambault, not even Gronzin, which is about 10 miles below Quebec, below Trois-Rivières. Because after that, then, this way, all of you know from going up to the Thousand Islands, you're just grinding against the current. And it can be strong in places. And that strip in front of Trois-Rivières is painful here. This whole section here, and they're 2 knots, 2 to 2.5 knots going down river. So you're just grinding up there. When you've had the pleasure of the tides carrying you along, is a pain in the neck. So if I can go with the higher tides, that get you home faster. The other trick we do, and I learned this from you, Dick, years ago. If you're going against the tide and you've got a dock, like in Quebec City or in Trois-Rivières or the east end of Montreal Harbor, go right in by the dock, motor along like 10 feet from the dock, because you're in the counter current there. And it's astounding. It's astounding how fast you go. Like in the east end of Montreal, the harbor, you're coming down here. The current here is 2 to 3 knots. But as soon as you get up around here, you're going close to the docks, you go on. Why, if you're hardly losing any distance at all? It's a little, you have to kind of get used to it. You're literally 10 feet from the dock. And then there's a ship dock there, well, you're going to get up close to him and shoot, go around, go close to him too. So people are looking down from the ship at you, saying, what the hell are you doing? But it's amazing how much speed you can pick up doing that. And I want to mention from up above Trois-Rivières, yes. This is Lac Saint-Pierre, above Three Rivers, Sorel. You exit the lake and come into here, Sorel. A few miles above Sorel, this Lanneray is here. There's a small boat channel on the north side. And I don't take it going down because I want the maximum current to take it down. But going back up, I always take that channel. There's no ships, it's well marked, there's plenty of water in it, and it's beautiful. And there's all kinds of anchorages. You end up on the other side of the islands, like here. There's lots of anchorages all along here. So, and you end up coming back to the main channel just as you enter the port of Montreal. So that's much faster way back.
C'est quoi la profondeur dans ce chanel?
Bon, moyenne 15 à 20 pieds.
Oh.
Mais il n'y avait pas de problème.
Is it well marked all the way, Pat?
Yep. I mean, there's fewer and fewer buoys all the way,
Yeah.
but with the GPS, and even with your binoculars, you can see the next one. They're the smaller buoys like we have in here, but no, I've had no trouble at all. And typically, even if you get out of the channel, it's weeds and mud, like most of Lac Saint-Louis. Not that I've not had that problem knocked on the ground, but I've come that way every time.
I heard rumors that Pierre Brosseau with Foxy ran aground a few times there.
Oh, was that right? The time I did the trip once with him, and we didn't run aground. But, Dick, did you ever take that small boat channel?
One time.
One time, yeah.
And yes, we always run around.
But I once went down to the Saguenay in the late 80s with Pierre Brosseau and Foxy, and we were two boats. I don't know whether you guys got this crazy idea, but that around Labor Day weekend, a bunch of boats would leave here with a bunch of guys aboard, stay on voyage de gars. But they would go from Montreal, from the yacht club, all the way down to Bay Eternité on the Saguenay, wait out a tide, then turn around and come all the way back. Maybe 5 or 6 days, you know. And it was fun. When you talk about it like that, it sounds pretty dumb, but it was a great trip. You know? But I remember just Dick would always be, he'd be ducking into the bays. But I remember one time you did that. We said, what's he ducking into the bay for? Well, at the beginning of the bay, we were ahead. At the end of the bay, he was ahead. So we said, oh, that's what he did. Yeah. So, you know, you go into the bay, he was getting away from the tide, the nose, the tide on the nose. Oh yes. L'autre chose, entre Cap-Alègue et Québec, il y a un autre chenail, la rive sud, which is out here. Ça c'est le coude, le chenail ici. C'est un chenail qui monte la rive sud, et l'avantage de ce chenail-là, il y a plusieurs événements. Saint-Jean-Port-Joli, 20 000 villages, on s'est marqué. Flaherty-sur-Mer, même quelques autres. Belle chance, oui. Des fois, on remonte par ça parce que le courant monte, le courant montant est toujours un peu moins fort que le descendant parce que vous n'avez pas le volume du fleuve qui descend. Mais ça, c'est la marine à Saint-Jean-Port-Joli, par exemple. C'est une très jolie ville. Et c'est intéressant juste de voir en fait, j'ai une autre photo ici. Vous voyez la couleur de l'eau. On the south shore, the land is much lower, it's farming land, and aside from that channel, le Chenail du Sud, qui est à peu près 30 pieds de profondeur, et le restant c'est à peu près 20 à 10 pieds de profondeur. Il y a beaucoup de boue dans l'eau. So, les arbres de ce côté-là ont toujours un problème de bouger, d'enlever the silt that's trying to fill in their harbor. They've got to be constantly dredging, or they get filled in. In fact, you can see in this picture, this is the edge of it. When you come in, they tell you stay around this side because they're always dredging over here. It's always dry at low tide. So it's different on the south shore, but still it's interesting. Les petits villages comme Saint-Jean-Port-Joli sont très jolis. So,
That's my cue.
Thanks, Matt.
Hello, everyone.
My name is Sylvie, for those that don't know me. I'm going to sit down for this so that you can enjoy the view in front of you, and I can read a bit my notes and go on with the presentation. Basically, I'm going to try to make light of the weather, and if you have any question about the places to swim, you can ask me later in the Q&A time. I'm quite the swimmer, so I enjoy being able to swim down there. Traveling to the Saguenay, well, to me, it's all about the marvels of nature. And it is absolutely beautiful. This is a stunning view right at the top of Cap Trinité in the Saguenay. So you have stunning views, stunning sightings, but let me ask you, for those that are still not sure on whether making the trip or not, if you have ever considered a trip to Alaska, a trip to the European Nordic countries, well, I assure you that getting to Tadoussac and the Saguenay is much closer and just as beautiful. This is in the Saguenay as well. So there is no reason why not to go downriver on your own boat. It is a life experience, that's for sure, but for Patrick and I, it's much more than that. It's a destination we never get tired of going to. It's a way of life for us. So we've been there 5 times to date. Patrick has been there times before he knew me, and we certainly are planning to go back again soon. So the marvels of nature includes landscape scenery that are simply exceptional, especially in the fjord. This is just on a mooring ball at the bottom of Cap Trinité in Baie Éternité. The marvels include as well man-made structure, bridges of all shape that you go under, distinct lighthouses, and historic building that Patrick has made light of earlier. And of course, there is animal life, some of which can only be witnessed in select part of the world. So all of this is at your fingertip, at your leisure, for your eyes to see. The weather really comes secondary, as it is totally enjoyable. A little bit of fog here one morning. Some more of the Saguenay. Typically, it's about 1 or 2 degree difference between Montreal and Quebec City, and a few more degrees less than that between Quebec and Tadoussac. The real difference, though, is not so much the air, but the water. At Tadoussac or in the St. Lawrence River at Cap Alleg, you can see 52 degrees Fahrenheit for the water. And yet you go to La Baie, where we saw the beautiful cruise ship, and it was 72 degrees for the water. So it's no more than a nice, refreshing, somewhat lake in northern, in the Laurentian to swim at. It is definitely doable. As far as the weather or the cold of the weather, it is mostly felt when you're traveling away from shore, or in between the north and south shores, or during the night. Beautiful view, isn't it? To prepare for the trip, one should bring usual summer clothing, a few polar shirts, good sweaters, socks, and long pants, along with your fall weather gear and a light windbreaker. If you hear of people that have been wearing winter clothes, it is mostly because they have crossed shore, where the river is much wider from downriver, so Rimouski, Matane, and eastward of that. For sleeping, a duvet, warm blankets ready to peel off as needed will be appreciated at nights. The temperature will reach high 20 degrees, low 30s Celsius, that is, as can be seen often in the summer, even at home. So we dress accordingly, and we dress also for rain and humidity. Here's what you see down there. The air is warm during the day, just as it is at home. So you wear your light shirt, your tank tops, shorts, and sandals. And this is when it's not as warm when you're on the way. And of course, having a furry friend to warm you up is always good. The air cools off in the evening, so you wear a light jacket and long pants. During the night, the cold water has kept the boat and everything located close to the hull, the fiberglass hull especially, cold as well. Great for beers, great for white wines in the hull. So the need to wear warmer clothes. If equipped with heating devices, you can control the temperature inside your boat and keep it more ambient. We don't bother with it, we don't have any, and we just don't find it that bad. The fall weather clothing will be worn while on the way, especially at night. From about Île-aux-Coudres to Tadoussac, that's where it gets the coolest. You will quickly shed this clothing though, upon reaching harbor. But they are a must-to-have and a must-to-have on hand. Don't worry, we didn't get hit. So I'm leaving you with these pictures that are just stunningly beautiful, just to show you what nature is about. It is a sight that you don't find anywhere else. It is worth living, if only once, and maybe like us, you'll go back years and years, again and again. And they get very close to you. So, it's been a pleasure to be with you tonight. Merci de nous avoir acceptés pour faire la présentation ce soir. And you too can go down there. Enjoy.
Juste une dernière question. Parce que ça arrive typiquement, est-ce qu'on peut peut-être on n'est pas certain que de notre disponibilité dans la prochaine mai, ça nous intéresserait d'avoir une éducation de votre intérêt, peut-être un groupe de bateaux qui peuvent partir ensemble pour au moins une partie de le voyage, je ne pourrais pas aller le tour toujours ensemble. So, si ça vous intéresse, peut-être envoie-moi un courriel. You see my number there, my email address. I'm interested in just the interest level in it. I'm not sure, I know I can't go in August, maybe in July next year. If there was an interest, we might just get together and talk about if we could perhaps arrange it for two. So I'll leave that with you. And any questions?
Patrick, just the value of radar, you said you don't have radar?
The value of it?
Yeah, I mean,
Would you recommend?
if you
Well,
play the
I
fog
guess, yeah,
and-
if you, then you could see the buoys and, see other vessels. But, my father never had it and I don't have it. You don't, I guess you don't need it, but it's a good thing to have for sure. If you've got it for kind of value, use it.
But don't invest for it.
Yeah. My trouble is for me to buy radar in my 1980 boat, it would be worth more than the boat.
Double the value.
Yeah. But particularly now with GPS. In fact, I've read stuff by world cruisers. One guy particularly who's well known down in the Caribbean, he's been around the world, he's going around his third time right now. And he said with AIS, he thinks that's better than radar. Because when you're at sea, AIS will let you know where if there's shipping near you. You don't have to see it on radar. You're alerted by the mandatory signal they have to send out.
What about the sailing? When you go for your 2 weeks trip, where do you end up sailing?
Well, you sail on, up and down the the channels here, if you get lucky to have the wind,
Yeah.
but it's wind maybe one day of 4, you know. I remember one time we were coming back up the river, leaving Capalais to Quebec City, and we had a strong wind coming up, and it was cold, and it was an east wind, it wasn't very nice, but it was strong, going with the currents, and we put our sails up, and we roared up, so that was lovely. But more often, you know, I always find the trouble is you've got 8 hours, 8 or 9 hours to get where you're going, so you're always concerned about keeping your speed up. So,
But once you're in the Saguenay, once you've reached your
oh,
goal,
okay, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you've arrived.
Yeah,
Okay.
on the Saguenay, you can easily
Is
tack
it
up, it's
wide
wide.
enough? It's interesting enough.
Oh, yeah,
to-
yeah, yeah.
to stay on
And I mean,
there's
the most glorious sail is always down the Saguenay, because the wind usually, it's the west wind comes down the river. So, I mean, if you have a 50-mile sail with your spinnaker, if you got one, there's nothing better than that. But, you know, again, you can sail on the Saguenay, it's several miles wide, you know. Yeah. And, you know, off Capalais, we visited there and had friends with us, we just go out sailing for the day, it's magnificent, the river's wide, lots of room to sail.
Québec, c'est vraiment, c'est idéal pour faire la voile. Hein.
Effectivement, c'est profond, beaucoup d'espace.
Sors du port, les voiles en l'air. C'est
Oui.
vraiment aucun obstacle à la navigation, c'est fou.
And the
No,
whales
those
are
fellas,
there.
right.
And this whales, Capalais, even Capalais is whales. Not as many as a Tadoussac, but there are whales.
Patrick, when you said that navigating the St. Lawrence Seaway going down and coming up,
Yeah,
we found out in the times we went that if you stay on the side of the channel,
yeah,
you're basically not bothered by the big shipping.
that's true, yeah.
You have to just hang out.
Just stay on
between-
the edge, yeah.
Yeah, and we were in Tooted a couple of times. When we Tooted. When you try to cut across it.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
But I mean, really, you stay along the buoy from one to the other along
Yeah.
the side of the channel, and they're normally stay in the middle of the channel. the big ships.
Yeah, yeah. Except that's their passing.
Yeah.
I was astounded this summer how much bloody traffic there was between Montreal and Quebec City. There was constantly ships in sight and ships passing and going
Through that night.
Well, yeah, I've done it. Well, with the AIS now, I'm less concerned, but still, I'd rather not.
What's your, I guess, fuel consumption, like daily and tankage, and where do you go?
Well, I've got a Yanmar SB8 like you used to have. Yeah,
I got it.
Mike, Jason just put an electric motor this year. And he's out sailing, you know, racing sailing. And he's winning. You kind of try to wonder. You can't hear that motor. But, you know, the boat will do 6 knots on flat calm. And it burns 1.5 liters an hour. So 6 knots will do 1.5 liters. So what do you burn, Jerry, in 6 miles?
Well, my Yanmar 2NG is.
I think more than trawler.
I burn 7.5 an hour.
And that's not much compared to the big,
No.
big power
Oh,
boats.
the big
Oh,
guy.
Pierre, oui. Parlons des gros bateaux moteurs.
20 à 30 litres.
20 à 30 litres à l'heure. Ok. Mais tu vas faire 100 000 à l'heure?
Mais OK, ça consomme pas.
Ah oui. C'est le gin qui consomme. Okay, right? All right. Anyway, thank you all. I'm delighted that so many people came here tonight. Merci beaucoup à tous.